Every year, thousands of people in the UK fall in love with foreign rescue dogs they've seen advertised online.
The advert showed a very sad-looking dog. His little face was just adorable, so I couldn't say no.
Shipped directly to your doorstep, it might seem like the perfect pet is just a click away. Would he come straight from North Macedonia to my house?
So we will deliver the dog in your house, yeah, no problem.
Okay, so it literally he would just be dropped off?
Yes.
More than 500,000 dogs here in the UK are from overseas, but with little regulation of rescue organisations, how safe is it to bring an unseen and possibly unvetted dog into your home?
They've almost set up a Deliveroo for dogs, and that is a real problem.
He was given a loaded gun. This dog was never going to be able to be settled.
I'd been bitten down my arm, and it was just so painful, and there was just blood pouring out.
These dogs are essentially ticking time bombs coming over, not being health tested, and that is a major concern, not just for pet owners, but also for the UK's health status.
I'm Kath Stanczyszyn, a BBC journalist in the West Midlands, and I want to know what appeals to people when they see a foreign rescue dog advertised online. Hi. Sharon, how are you? Who's this?
Teddy and Willow.
Oh, hello. That's it. Do you want a treat? I've got treats.
The war in Ukraine had just started. This rescue was getting dogs out from Ukraine, as many dogs as they could. I just thought it was something that I could do to help. The rescue needed somebody to take a dog that was pregnant, and they desperately needed to get her out, but saw her picture and she was just gorgeous. The advert showed a very sad-looking dog. It said that he had come from a family home. The family were fleeing from the war. He was good with animals, he was good with other dogs, good with cats, good with kids. Just an all-round, well-behaved dog. So we had tried to rescue dogs before in the UK. We went to a few local ones, and they made it very, very difficult. Very expensive, very difficult. They were quite happy that we had cats, quite happy that we had another dog, and they just made it easy.
The dogs which caught Sian and Natalie's attention had been rescued by the same organisation, Paw Help UK, based in Burton-upon-Trent. What was your first contact like with the organisation?
There wasn't much questions, or she just did a quick video call to check the house, and she was happy for me to have her. It happened all quickly.
The animals would be sent across Europe directly to their new owners in the back of a dog transport vehicle. Within days, Sian's adopted dog, which she'd renamed Nala, gave birth to 11 puppies. But the joy of rescuing a dog from overseas, and now a house full of puppies, was short-lived.
And then I had a knock at the door. I opened the door, and it was a lady stood there, and she said she was from Trading Standards, that they were coming to take Nala.
An investigation by the authorities found 19 other dogs in a particular consignment imported by the same rescue had been provided with false blood test certificates. As a precaution against rabies, Sian and Natalie's new pets, including the puppies, were taken away and quarantined in kennels. What started as a charitable attempt to rescue dogs from a war zone was now a matter of public safety.
It was heartbreaking. It was terrifying. We didn't know what was going to happen. We were scared for him that he was going to be put down.
To enter the UK, rescue dogs must have a microchip, appropriate health certification, and be treated for tapeworm. They must also have been tested for rabies. At the moment, the UK is considered rabies-free, so it's crucial that imported dogs have the correct paperwork to make sure they meet basic health standards. But is that always happening?
It devastated the families to have their pets that they love taken off them, and it caused a lot of fear as well. And that was a big alarm bell that our owners were not being protected.
Tiffany volunteered at Poor Help UK at the time of the investigation into the falsified rabies documents.
They bring dogs typically every 2 weeks. They bring 20 from Ukraine, 20 from Belarus on a rolling basis.
Had you had any worries about things like medical testing or paperwork previously?
No, not previously, but I don't know if that's because I was a little bit naive and didn't understand the full process.
There is a balance, isn't there, to be had in rescuing dogs that need it and making sure that people who are taking them on are getting what they expect.
How can you have that balance when you've got 40 dogs a month being transported across? How can you be there to provide support for all the different owners? How can you do your checks? How can you know where all your dogs are? You get overwhelmed, and yeah, I think that's what's happened here.
Poor Help UK told me animal welfare and general public safety are its highest priorities. It's had hundreds of successful pairings, keeps track of rehomed dogs, and offers ongoing help to owners. The charity says it didn't know the documents were forged and says they originated from a German laboratory used on an emergency basis after the outbreak of war in Ukraine. But there was another problem. One dog arrived at its new home in Stoke-on-Trent with a health issue. It was infected with Brucella canis, a disease not endemic in this country, but found in parts of Eastern Europe. The dog passed the disease to its owner, thought to be the first dog-to-human transmission in the UK. The disease had entered undetected, but there is no legal requirement for rescues to test for it.
It was absolutely heartbreaking. It put fear in a lot of the owners, including myself. As a team, we asked questions. How was this allowed to happen?
The RSPCA's major concern is these dogs are essentially ticking time bombs coming over, not being health tested. Diseases are now coming in through these dogs. They're affecting not just the dogs that are being imported, they could also affect the dogs already in this country and their owners. And that is a major concern, not just for pet owners, but also for the UK's health status.
Poor Help UK says before this case it had never heard of Brucella canis and claims there was absolutely no guidance or information available from the authorities. But DEFRA, the government department which oversees animal imports in the UK, says it published a risk review providing a description of the risks of Brucella canis to human health in 2021, a year earlier. The charity says it now tests all dogs for Brucella before they travel to the UK. Although it remains rare, cases of this disease in dogs appears to be rising substantially. Before 2020, there were only 3 known positive cases of Brucella found in UK dogs. Testing has increased, and by last year, there were 333 positive cases being investigated.
This is an understudied, neglected disease. It appears primarily driven through Eastern Europe and the southeastern Mediterranean, where dogs are being imported.
Experts at the Royal Liverpool University Hospital have been closely monitoring the spread of the disease.
Whilst it's a very low-risk transmission to humans, there is a potential that humans can get infected from infected dogs. And we've had one case of Brucella culture positive in human, as well as a very small handful that we are still investigating with our public health colleagues.
How is it then transmitted, this illness, from a dog to a human being?
And that's primarily contact with the fluids that have the most infectious potential. So we're talking about birthing process and potentially also the infected blood of an animal as well would be the considered high-risk fluids.
So if you were to catch it from an infected dog, what could your symptoms be?
Usually with quite a high fever, often with very painful and achy joints and painful and achy muscles. But we do know that some patients go on to present with a full-blown spectrum with some complicated signs and symptoms such as bone and joint disease or even potentially meningitis. So for humans, if we suspect disease, will be a period of antibiotics. And if you're concerned that you may have started to develop signs or symptoms, then approach your local GP to get a referral on to your local infectious diseases service.
Hi, Trudy. Hi, I'm Kath. Nice to meet you.
It just breaks my heart, so it's been hard. Sorry. I've done no but cry since I found out the results.
Trudy's Romanian rescue dog Nola was delivered to her home in Derbyshire last year by a different rescue organisation called Paw Prints to Freedom, based in Nantwich. 4 months after arriving, Nola tested positive for brucella at a local vet. Trudy was left with a stark choice. And although really difficult, did you consider euthanasia?
Well, she offered euthanasia because they have to, because that's part of their protocol. My brain does not compute to having a dog that looks healthy put to sleep. So, for a minute, a second, and that were it, and then I'll fight to keep her.
Trudy decided not to have Nola put down, despite there being no cure for the disease in dogs. She's decided to work to her vet's advice to reduce transmission. But living with a brucella-positive rescue dog isn't going to be easy. What impact has this had on you?
Massive. Massive. I wanted to do a good thing, now I feel like I've done a bad thing.
Paw Prints to Freedom told me that while pre-import testing for brucella isn't mandatory, it's been getting dogs tested for the disease since 2021 and would have fully supported Trudy if she wanted to surrender Nola back into their care.
This is the RVC Museum, so we've got all kinds of specimens, some of them a little bit squeamish.
Dr. Rowena Packer is a dog welfare expert at the Royal Veterinary College in London. She wants brucella testing for dogs from countries where the disease is endemic to be mandatory before they're imported to the UK.
It's really important to know a dog's health status if it's imported. So if we have dogs that are entering the UK that, for example, haven't been tested for those disorders before they come here, it could be a potential Trojan horse. They could be coming to the UK and bringing unknown diseases that then have the potential to spread within our own population.
So, who's this beautiful boy?
So this is Bear. So he's been with us about a week now. So he came in from Romania. We normally sort of let them just completely decompress for the first sort of 24 hours, just to settle in.
Based in the Worcestershire countryside, Forest Dog Rescue provides homes to unwanted, abandoned and mistreated dogs, some of which originally came from Eastern Europe.
We then ask people to fill out a questionnaire and they will then try and match the person to the dog and vice versa. Because I think a lot of people do tend to think with emotions as opposed to anything else. So that's why we do give them this period that they can just go home and have a really good chat about it.
Over the years, they've learned the challenges posed by overseas rescue dogs, especially if they're taken straight from the street.
Obviously, there's a lot of different rescue organisations, lots of people seeing them on Facebook, on different social media sites. What do you think about that?
It does blow my mind a little bit. You've seen a video and a few pictures, etc. And literally you adopt the dog's sent over and it could be dropped into you at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's sort of like handed over to you and off you go. And that's like the most concerning and worrying thing to me, because a dog can change so much, and that's what we found here, that a dog that I've seen in a video is not the dog that comes off the transport.
With dogs dropped straight to people's homes, there's concern about the risk of adoptions failing, which puts pressure on UK rescues.
You've had 2 people this week come to you?
Yeah. So 2 people have phoned up and basically we've got this dog, it's not working, had them from Romania. So then what are those people going to do? So they're then going to UK rescues to help them. So we're basically having to mop up after rescues that aren't stepping up and taking responsibility for their dogs.
In England, anyone can set up a dog rescue. And unlike Scotland, there's currently no requirement for organisations to be licensed, including those which import dogs from overseas.
Unfortunately, as the RSPCA is seeing, more and more people are abandoning those dogs and then expect the RSPCA and other organisations to suddenly take care of that problem, and that is not the right thing to do. The RSPCA is getting frustrated and we want to see licensing brought in, the public support it, the potential dog rehomers support it. So my plea to government is don't dilly-dally, bring it in immediately.
I asked the government if it has any plans to introduce licensing. It didn't tell me specifically, but said animal rescue organisations must meet statutory welfare requirements. It said members of the public can check if a rescue is a member of the Association of Dogs and Cats Homes that has set clear standards, and added the government is developing an overarching approach to animal welfare. Go online and you'll find countless posts advertising rescue dogs, some of them charging hundreds of pounds in adoption fees. I analysed 150 adverts on Facebook and a major online pet marketplace, just a snapshot of those available. The vast majority were for overseas dogs. From the adverts I saw, over half appeared to be offering dogs which could be delivered from overseas right to my front door.
What does that say to you?
We know that some of these dogs are going to have trauma from that journey and potential early life trauma from where they've come from. It worries me that there's a huge chunk of those dogs and owners that really aren't suited to become a family just like that on their front doorstep.
Right now, there's nothing stopping organisations from advertising foreign rescue dogs online. But I wanted to find out if any would hand over a dog without carrying out the proper checks first. So I worked with experts to create a fake profile, one that should raise questions for adoption organisations when I phone up to ask about getting a dog.
I'm a first-time dog owner and it's a first floor flat, so I haven't got a garden. I have got access to a space downstairs, like a courtyard, but I haven't got any outside space of my own, really.
As long as it's like you're fine with, because you'll need house training and whatnot.
I also work out of the house like part-time, 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Most organisations I called were in principle happy to let me adopt, subject to filling in an application form and a video tour of my flat. In most cases, I wouldn't get to meet the dog before it was delivered to my door.
Would he come straight from North Macedonia to my house, or would he?
Yes.
He would.
Delivery. Where do you live, sir? You live in Birmingham, yeah?
Birmingham, yeah.
So we will deliver the dog in your house, yeah, no problem.
Okay. So it, literally he would just be dropped off?
Yes.
Obviously, with a Romanian dog, you wouldn't meet the dog beforehand.
So transport will literally take you to your door if you are in the mainland of the UK.
They've almost set up a Deliveroo for dogs, and that is a real problem, not just for the UK's animal health status, because who knows what those dogs are bringing in, but it's also a problem in terms of the rehoming process.
So how would you sum up the practices that you've heard today? And is this responsible rehoming?
So your investigation has clearly shown problems with the system. It is suggesting that getting a dog is fairly easy, and that really is a worry for us, because if it's not going to work out, particularly as you suggested you were a first-time dog owner, if it's not working out, then there is no place for you to go if the rehoming organisation has already disappeared across the horizon. The only thing really open for you is to either hold on to the dog, which could lead you to bigger problems, or to abandon it, which is obviously illegal, and then hope that somebody like the RSPCA takes care of it from there.
Dan Kay from Liverpool had struggled with serious mental health issues for years and had a history of self-harm. He thought having a dog would be a new chapter.
I got a little dog named Seamus, little border terrier who Dan loved. And I think Dan seen what he gave to me as a friend, a pal, someone to come home to. Dan was a single man, so he would have been happy to come home to a nice little wag and tail now and again after a rough day. And so he began a search for a dog.
A 10-year-old crossbreed in Bosnia caught Dan's eye online. Within days, he'd paid £500 and arranged for his new pet, Bocky, to be delivered.
Oh, he was really excited. He was buzzing, you know. It was something he'd looked forward to for years, and it was finally happening.
Bocky was imported from Eastern Europe by another Midlands-based organisation, Adopt a Rescue Dog, which operated through Facebook.
When the dog came, its coat was matted. It had kennel cough, apparently. Its ears were all matted with wax. All these were alarm bells to me. But Dan was so concerned about making this a success for the dog.
At first, Dan was delighted to have Bocky in his life. He even posted a glowing review for the rescue online. He thought he was getting a calm, friendly dog who'd be perfect for a first-time owner.
My little dog Seamus, Dan's dog attacked it 4 times. One day, Dan phoned me, asking me to come and help him. He made a sandwich for himself for his own lunch, and the dog attacked Dan to get to the sandwich. And Dan was so scared he ran and locked himself in the bedroom. He was constantly worried about this dog. He was kept thinking to himself that he was a failure. These things lay heavy on him, because he likes to be good at everything. We all do. And something as simple as he thought, looking after a dog, he couldn't do it.
Less than 3 months after the dog's arrival, and after getting help from an animal behaviour expert, Dan was told by a vet that the only option was to have Bocky put down. He reluctantly agreed.
The deterioration in Dan once the dog had been put to sleep was horrendous. He was a shadow of the man he was. Now, what Dan was thinking, I don't know, but he'd obviously overthought things and deemed what he seen to be as a failure.
Dan took his own life just over 2 weeks after having Bocky put down. A coroner found failures by his community mental health team could have contributed to Dan's death. But Dan's friends and family say his mental health had deteriorated significantly after his experience with Bocky.
Somebody who contributed to my life and many, many people like me. We've lost a really good person here.
Adopt a Rescue Dog says they believe the dog was gentle and well behaved, and this is what Dan initially communicated to them. They say they acted urgently after Dan raised concerns and found a potential new home for Bocky after approximately 2 weeks. But by that time, the dog had been put down. They say they supported Dan throughout the adoption process and offered free help from a dog behaviourist.
The situation right now is we have a lot of really well-meaning people in the UK engaging in either adopting these dogs or being part of organisations that import them, that really want to help. I think it's a really big gamble as to what you're going to end up with, because without clear information about lots of the elements of that dog's life and history, it's going to be difficult to match you with that dog. So it is a little bit Russian roulette here.
Natalie's dog Clarice died less than a year after his release from quarantine.
He was with my husband and my son on a normal walk, morning walk, when his heart gave out. Thought we would have 5 years out of him. We had him for 1.5 years and that was it. And then he was gone.
Sian's dog Nala was eventually released from quarantine after her paperwork was found to be in order. But she believes 3 weeks in kennels contributed to a change in the dog's behaviour.
So you picked her up and you brought her home, and I imagine you were very relieved, but what was Nala like then?
She was just reactive, like she'd never been before. Like she was just an aggressive dog.
Over the weeks that followed, Nala bit Sian and her family several times.
I'd been bitten down my arm, and it was just so painful, and there was just blood pouring out. And I was in so much pain. The bite had gone right through to the muscle. My son, Stanley, who was 12 at the time, he had been bitten really bad.
After speaking with a vet, it was decided Nala would have to be put down. Poor Help UK says it deeply regrets all the stress caused. It says only one consignment of dogs ever arrived with forged documents, and this was from Ukraine in 2022. All dogs imported before and since have had fully legitimate paperwork. The charity says it no longer uses private labs for testing, and none of the imported dogs had rabies. The vehicles the dogs arrived in were fully licensed and the journeys conducted legally, but it stopped using this transport service in 2022. The charity says it is moving back to in-person home checks.
There was just nothing we could do. Our intentions were completely and utterly for the right reasons for rescuing a dog. If I was looking for a dog now, it wouldn't be, I certainly wouldn't go to a rescue online.
We need greater transparency and we need better regulation. We need to know where these dogs start their life, we need to know who's responsible for them and where they're going.
DEFRA says Great Britain has one of the toughest pet border checking regimes in the world, and it's committed to preserving the United Kingdom's high standards of biosecurity and animal welfare. It said its measures include document checks on all dogs entering Great Britain and a maximum of 12 months imprisonment or an unlimited fine for illegally importing a dog.
The tragic thing about this particular issue is that there are unintended consequences that probably people don't even think about before they click on that internet site and get their dog.